First of all, I'll say this. I've been told I can only have 45 minutes. Yeah, right. Anybody ever heard me talk before? It's going to be, I'm going to overrun. So I'll just put that one straight up on the screen. What the F? Those sharp-eyed amongst you will see that there's 5 asterisks and not 4, so it isn't the word that you thought it might be. Okay, so we're going to find out what those 5 Fs are. So I'll go quick for a bit. We need to concentrate on 5 key things in our businesses. All our businesses are different, some large, some small, some where you're employing lots of people, some not. But we're going to concentrate on the 5 key things that I think are relevant in today's world. But first, before I do that, I'm going to have a go at explaining the current Brexit situation. Or not. Now, interestingly, this joke, I mean, I'm sure you'll find it hilarious, obviously, but it's not funny to a business owner, is it? Because we're kind of fed up with Brexit. When I say a joke like this to an employed audience, an audience of people that are generally employed, they all think this is hilarious. Brexit's hilarious. Okay, not to business owners, because it's tough, isn't it? So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about Brexit and what do we actually know. That's it. That's it. Can I go home now, Tina? Because we know nothing, do we? We don't know whether we don't even know whether we're still coming out now. I mean, the world's gone crazy. The Parliament, the government's gone crazy. Jeremy Corbyn says that they're going to have another vote. Boris Johnson says we're not having another vote. Boris Johnson's going to break the law and then be dead in a ditch or something like that. I mean, our current political situation is making Donald Trump look sane, which is always a worry. So we know nothing about Brexit. We don't know actually whether we're even going to come out. We don't know what's going to happen with the trade agreements. We know nothing of any relevance. So planning for it is impossible. What I can suggest to you is this. You can't worry about the external. The external is Brexit and what's going to happen and what the government are going to do and so on. You can't worry about that because it isn't within your control, because you don't know. What you can do is concentrate on the internals with your business and focus on you and what your business is doing, such that when the change, if the change, whatever the change happens, then you are better fit for that purpose. Does that make sense? So focus on, don't worry about the externals. Unless you're planning to go and shoot Boris Johnson anytime soon, there's not really very much you can do about it. So the first of my F's is this one, is we have to be fast as business owners. Speed is of the essence. And I was thinking about that as we're sort of not getting close to Christmas, but certainly we're starting to get these through the door, the old Christmas catalogues. Now, some of you are as old as me, I know, so there's no point fibbing. I know who you are. Now, do you remember when we first used to get Christmas catalogues? You had to order in November. Do you remember? It used to be 28 days for delivery. And I remember putting it in my diary every year. Don't forget to order the whatchamacallits for the kids' Christmas stockings or whatever. And the order and delivery times, not only on Christmas stuff, but on everything, has just got quicker and quicker and quicker. And as far as Christmas is concerned, as long as you've ordered by 3 o'clock on Christmas Eve, you're kind of okay. A Christmas gift nowadays can be ordered, wrapped, open and thrown away all within 24 hours, which is amazing. It all happens so much more quickly than ever it did. So you have to be fast. You have to be fast on your feet as business owners. We live in an immediacy world. Everything has to happen and it has to happen quickly. And the customer expects and assumes a very fast turnaround of everything that we do. And whether that's a service business, whether it's a manufacturing business, whatever it is, the customer will expect a quicker turnaround than they've ever expected before. Customers now have very short attention spans. Attention spans were gnat. You know, it flits from one to the other. And if you can't respond quickly, they will go to someone who will, irrespective, I would imagine, of price or quality, because people just want to be able to click on their phone and get an answer and get a product almost immediately. My eldest daughter went to a fancy wedding about 3 weeks ago, and the wedding was on the Sunday. She ordered a dress on the Monday before, and it came on the Thursday. Now, those of us that are older than that, you know, we plan the dress 6 months in advance and all the rest of it. But my daughter's obviously fairly young, and for her, ordering a dress 5 days before an event felt like ages. You know, she said, "I've got ages, Mum, got ages." So orders a dress for a wedding just 6 days before. And that is the way of the world. Now, what I wanted to do is, rather than just witter at you, is I wanted to give you actions that you could do or test or trial for yourself and your business within the 5 categories that I'm going to look at. So in terms of fast, my actions are these. Always review your delivery, response, order processing, call times, activities, anything that your business does, and make it quicker. If you haven't sped up your response times in recent past, then do so. Even like, you know, if you're answering a phone within 5 rings, make it 4 rings or 3 rings. If you're used to delivering within 24 hours, make it 12 hours. Make it quicker than it used to be. And make that a KPI, key performance indicator, and make sure that you review that regularly, because you will very quickly get left behind here. I mean, Amazon are just cornering the market there in terms of speed. What I suggest you do is to review those times in line with the market norm. So how are other people in your sector, your market, your industry, how quickly are they responding? Mystery shop to make sure how quick they are. I'm in the property world, as you know, so I know how long each council takes on search times when you're transacting a property, because I need to know what's the norm for my industry, my area. And with property, it's a fairly insensitive measure, because it takes an average of 20 weeks to complete a property transaction. Now, 20 weeks is a long time, so you don't quite have the urgency. But for those of you that do have products where you need a quick turnaround, make sure you know what your competitors are doing, make sure you're 1 second faster than them, and make sure you constantly review it. Now, so that's to keep you fast and active. The next F is about focused. Now, I'm going to suggest here that you stay focused on your core deliverables, the basic without the fluff. I think now is the time to unclutter, to declutter, to make your products and services pure. This is not the time to be adding bells and whistles. So keep your business focused on your core deliverable, and only then really can you be fast. Because if you've got lots of clutter around and lots of things going on, then that will slow down your business processing. So my actions for you on focused looks like this. Clearly identify your core business, your strategy, your product. Think top level, think elevator pitch. Make sure that you can identify what your core business is, your core strategy, your core product, your USP, whatever your one thing is. Make sure that you know what it is, you can explain it really clearly, and that your team members know exactly what it is. So there's no doubt you're all going on the same crystal clear laser focus on one thing. Otherwise, people will get distracted and it starts to clutter, it slows down, so make sure that you keep focused. Once you've got your core business and your strategy identified, and you're all very clear on that, take that clarity down onto your customer and start to focus on your customer and what they want. Now, TLC for me doesn't stand for tender loving care, it stands for think like the customer. Always TLC, think like the customer. And you must get as much input to thinking like a customer as you possibly can. If your business has never been mystery shopped, then you need to arrange that, obviously such that you don't know who they are, but because otherwise you will never get clear feedback on your own business. and how your customers are perceiving you. Now, to help you, because I've got an attention span of a gnat myself, I've got some topics that you can look at in terms of customer focus, and I'll start with the C. And the C is about being congruent, making sure that everything is as one, because as soon as you're out of alignment, as soon as you're incongruent, then that tends to halt your sales. So I mean congruency in product style, branding, it can even be colour, font, sizes, distribution, everything has to be the same. It has to match your price, so everything is congruent. The customer will sniff if you've got any incongruency there, because they can see that you're not properly aligned. So make sure you've got everything the same. Every colour's the same, every font's the same, the products are in line, everybody's focused, everybody's selling the same product in the same version, whatever it might be. So make sure that everything is congruent within your business. And one quick way to find out whether you've got a congruent business or not is, and I've done this with some of you many years ago, sit your team members down, or if it's just you and the missus or the husband or whatever, both sit down and write down who your business would be if it was a woman. You know, would it be, what's her name, Katie Price, Jordan? Would it be her, or would it be Fiona Bruce? Now, you can hear immediately that there's a difference there in character. And once you've decided what woman or man, don't want to be sexist here, whenever you've decided what person your business is, look at your business objectively and say, does that look like Fiona Bruce? No, it's a bit tacky around the edges, so we need to change that. So do that as an exercise, just see who your person would be. The next thing, the U, is to make your product and your business understandable. It needs to be a clear proposition, uncluttered. Everybody needs to be able to know what it is. I've sat through many presentations and spoken to many people, and of course they know exactly what their product is because it's their product. And I'm listening to the conversation thinking, what is the product? You know, is it coaching? Is it counselling? Is it you know, design? And you can't quite get to grips with what the product is. So make sure your proposition is very clear and uncluttered. And I know you all think, you'll be sitting there thinking, oh yeah, my proposition's clear and uncluttered. Get yourself mystery shopped and then you'll find out whether it is or not. The S stands for making everything the same, consistent with what a customer's had before and consistent with what they'll get before, next time, again and again. And obviously McDonald's is the perfect example of this. No, you know, you can be in the middle of nowhere in Timbuktu and you see the Magic Arches sign. Now, if you like it or you don't like it, and I suggest most of you probably don't like it, you do know exactly what you're going to get when you go in that store. You know, I've been in McDonald's in Sydney, Hong Kong, all over the world. It's always the bloody same, exactly the same. And that's reassuring for a customer because they know they're going to get exactly what they've always got. And, you know, it's reassuring. Customers like to be reassured. The T stands for topical, up-to-date, on-trend, relevant, even if it's classic. So this is something you have to watch out for because you might have a good product that's been very successful, but it does still need to move with the times. So refresh your products, have somebody else look at your products, hopefully somebody who's younger than you because they might have a different perspective. So make sure that you keep your products current. You know, everything needs to have Bluetooth nowadays. Whatever it is, make sure that you're embracing modern trends and what's available. Now, the O stands for on the money. The price has to fit all the other things. It's just as easy to be too cheap as it is too expensive. The cost has to fit the brand, and this is bringing us back to the congruency again. And with my particular marketplace, my Fielding Financial, I can't see a banner, but I don't think I brought one. With Fielding Financial, it's a financial education company, and our biggest competitor in the marketplace is owned by an American. And their prices are, or were, twice as high as ours. Now, that's because they had very high overheads. They had swanky offices in London that were costing them $60,000 a month, and they had to remit huge amounts of their profit to the American. Now, my business, which offers the same service, I'd say it's a lot better, but I wouldn't I, was half that price, because our office is based in Devon, where we pay tuppence halfpenny for the rent, even though it's huge, salaries are lower, and there's no crazy American in the background wanting profits. So it was quite justifiable that our price was much lower than theirs, but it made us look out of kilter with the marketplace. So we had to put our prices up a bit to make it look like it was more sensible. So your prices can be too cheap or they can be too expensive. So you need to do all of those measures with other organisations, services, whatever it is you do in the area. And I would say go outside your area. I would say that because I think even within Worthing and Ada, and I talk to a lot of businesses here, obviously, and I live here, but this isn't where my business is based. So I'm lucky enough to get input from London, which is where I mainly work, Devon, which is where the office is, and obviously local. And I can tell you, this area's mad, okay? Not really, but the prices are different here. The expectations are different here. I've talked to Tina about it many times. So look outside the area and see if you can see the differences. In general, I find the response times are quicker outside of the Sussex area. There's no reason why that should be, because you're all capable of being just as fast. But maybe the competition for the business is more elsewhere, I don't know. You'd have your own thoughts on that. So make sure that your price is congruent with your brand, with everything that you're offering, and that it's congruent within the marketplace as a whole. Now, the M stands for moral. You'll be brought down in an instant on social media if you do something immoral, illegal, that's even slightly off beam. You must be legal, proper, moral and fair. Otherwise, the feedback will get you. Okay, the social feedback will get you. So I'd say clean up your act. If you need cleaning up, I doubt very much where any of you do, but just bear in mind, always make sure that you're well within the right side of accepted legal standards at any time. Now, the E stands for expectations. Your product has to fit your promise. The marketing has to describe the product, really. Now, marketing people are apt to get very generous with their pros, let's say, but if the maintenance or delivery team are not delivering that, your customer will very soon get unhappy with it because their expectation has been set in the wrong place. It might be set too high or too low. So make sure that everything is congruent, make sure the expectation, make sure the marketing team are describing the product that you're delivering. And I have many conversations with organisations where every penny of marketing spend is a complete and utter waste of time because they're describing a product that doesn't get delivered, and it makes the customer feel cheated, let down. They feel like the product is wrong when they get it, and that starts the complaints and the costs go up, and it's a waste of everybody's money. I'm forever saying to people, how much does your marketing people spend on this? Because you've just thrown it down the tube, but not really. You know, the marketing people has to be in line. The next thing I'd want to say is R, and that's about receivable, deliverable. It has to be easy to receive, to buy, to collect. Distribution is vital. I've got the old shopping cart there. If you sell things online, you've got an internet business, or you've got some of your business is on the internet. If it's taking a customer 5, 6, 7 clicks to get to the shop, it's too long. It's far too long. You've got to make it as easy as possible to get to the out and the shop. So what we did at Fielding Financial, what people can do, they can come online and they can book a place at a free seminar. And that had, I think, 4 clicks to get to the I'm going to book. We've cut that down to 2, and the number of people has more than doubled that come through. So that we've seen a direct correlation with the shorter the journey to the shop, the more people will click on and buy. In our case, it's a free seminar, so it's not a direct measure, but see if you can do that on your own websites. See if you can make anything easier. See if you can have stuff pre-packaged, ready to go. Again, I think I've quoted this many times before, but I used to work for a large financial services organisation in Brighton, and in about 1990, they had the amazingly forward-thinking idea of actually pre-populating their application forms. Now, We never used to do that before then. You used to get sent a blank envelope. What they had the idea of is when somebody, phoned up and said, I might want one of your products, the application would go out completed because they'd already got the customer's name, address and blah, blah, blah. And then there'd be a box where they had to sign with a big couple of crosses on it. All the customer had to do was to sign it and send it back. I mean, it revolutionised their sales, absolutely revolutionised their sales. And of course, then everybody started doing it. But what it was doing was making the journey to the purchase as quick, as slick, as clear as possible, and with the least effort for the customer. So distribution is vital. So they're the different parts of thinking like a customer. And then see if you can walk in your customer's shoes, and I mean really. So depending on what type of business you have, if you've got a catering business, eat the food. If it's a shop, go in the shop. I'm always amazed by going in, particularly clothing stores. I don't think the owners can ever go in there because it's quite difficult to buy stuff in some clothing stores. Would you rather buy from that or from that? Really walk in your customer's shoes. And it is a skill because we all look at our own businesses with rose-coloured glasses. If you are not able to look at it clearly, get somebody else to do it. Do a swap with somebody else. Say, I'll come and have a look at your business if you're not going to punch me in the eye when I tell you what it's really like. And then, they can look at yours, vice versa. Right, so just to remind you on focused, the actions. First of all, get focused on your core business, your strategy, your product, your USP, whatever it is. Make sure that you're completely focused on what your business is and that everybody in your team knows exactly what it is. Focus on your customer. Don't forget mystery shop, remember TLC, remember the different parts of the customer. And if you weren't able to write them down and you want them to, Tina will get them to you. Now, the next one, I think, is probably one of the tricky ones because the next F stands for being flexible. And within being focused and fast, you've got to be flexible because that's a customer demand thing. Because one day they want a pink one and the next day they want a blue one and then the next one they want one with a hat on or whatever it might be. Because a customer's needs and requirements and wants are always changing. So you have to, that's what the world is, that's the gig. So you have to go with it and the customers now expect flexibility. However, this is difficult because if you're focused on your one thing and your clear strategy and everything that you should be doing, you can't change it to suit every customer. Because if you manufacture your stuff in pink and they want a blue one, well, it's tough banana. But what it does enable you to do is to set some parameters. So it means that when people are taking orders or when you're talking to people about potential sales, you can say, look, we don't make them in blue because we found our quality diminishes. So our offering is a pink one. Okay, so that you can set the customer's expectations from the very beginning. And if you do that well, the customer should be happy. But it's quite difficult to be flexible and focused at the same time. But if you're focused on your strategy, then you can be flexible within it. But clarity is key. It's particularly important if you've got a large team, because everybody will have a different view on what flexible means. So what I suggest you do as a business owner is set some kind of parameter as to how far people can stray from the norm and it still be acceptable. So again, to use my organisation as an example, Fielding Financial, we provide training for people. So it's like a 2-year diploma, so it's just like a university, so it's £9,000 a year for the fees, and that's the gig. Now, when people come and get introduced to that, some of them don't want to start until 2 months' time because their dog's got a bad leg, and some do want to pay for it, but they don't want to pay for it all now. Some want to pay for it all up front as long as they can do the courses on Tuesday. And everybody comes with a different version, and of course we want to be flexible enough to provide that for them. So what we've said to our team is this: you've got basically 1 month's flexibility. So our offering is this: you can't really change an academic course, a 2-year course, but you've got 1 month's flexibility. Now that's 1 month in terms of how far you can push the courses back, and it's also the cost of the 1 month's discount that you can give, which is 750 quid. So our teams know that within those parameters they can be flexible, but at the end of the day the focus is still on the 2-year course. Does that make sense to everybody? Now I don't know whether any of that is going to be relevant to you or your business, but just think how far you can go and still be kind of flexible to the customer without losing your focus. Now, the next F is about being friendly. Now, you will have some standard as to how you address people, whether you address people as Mr. Smith or whether you address people as Steve. In the main, it's first name terms only. But again, be careful about your customers. My dad's recently passed away, he was 92. And like the gas board would phone him up and the person at the other end would say, "Is it all right if I call you Reg?" And he'd say, "No, it bloody isn't," because he wanted to be called Mr. Hopper, because he was 92 and that's what his expectation was. So even within your own standard, you've got to be sensitive to what the customers want. So in the main, we go first name terms when we're talking to customers, help desk, making calls, outbound calls, inbound calls, whatever. But just be sensitive to who you've got at the other end. Now, most businesses get to grips with the interface with their business and the external customer, but don't get to grips with the business and the internal customer, which is the other team members and you and them and whoever you're working with. So the internal customer is just as important as the external customer. You cannot have one person will not communicate in two different styles. Okay, it's quite hard to do. So whatever your internal standard is the standard that they will naturally use when they're going out to customers. So if you're friendly within the business, they will be friendly when you go out. There's absolutely no way on earth that as a business owner, you can be a complete nightmare to your team and be unfriendly and expect them to be friendly going out. So you might need to look at yourself a bit there if you're a business owner. So the other thing I would say is that it needs to go down more than one level. And this is to do with good quality team members. Now, it's very easy for a team member to be friendly on the first question or the first level. Now, you find this particularly in America, and I apologise if we've got any Americans in the room, but I travel a lot across the States, and they have this. Have we got any Americans in the room before I really seriously upset people? Or could you forgive me just for 10 minutes? They're very good at the superficial, have a nice day type of stuff, aren't they? I mean, you go to Disney or wherever you're going to go, and there's some guy dressed up as Goofy on the door, or there's somebody on the phone, and they're really, over friendly, and it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, okay, I want to make a booking. I'm going to come and stay at Disney. Oh, yes, Jill, that'll be fantastic. You can stay in this hotel and that hotel. And then you say, well, yeah, I do want to stay in that hotel, but I only want to be on the second floor. I don't want to be down on the first floor. And I'm not going up. I want to be on the second floor. Yes, Jill, that's all right. We have got a room on the second floor. And I want one on a corner, so it's got windows, on two walls, and you can hear the friendliness draining out of their voice because you've pushed them beyond their limit. So it's very easy to be friendly superficially, but do you really mean it? So think about whether your team can cope with the second or third level, or the second or third or fourth or fifth question, whether they can still maintain that friendliness. I always say any idiot can run a decent business, but when your team can cope with the googly and the second layer and the third level and the difficulty, that's when you know you've got a really good team. So make sure they can go all the way down. Make sure that you're friendly throughout, and that's your help desk team, your customer interface, but also your maintenance, your manufacturing, everything that you're doing, it has to be the same standard throughout. Otherwise, the customer will find out. So actions for you there are do it and be it yourself. However friendly you are to the team is how friendly they will be to the customers. And although your team might be quite forgiving if you turn up one morning with a hangover, it has to be, in the main, you have to set the standard that you want them to set with the customers. Otherwise, if they are unfriendly to your customers, oh boy, you're going to get caught out on social media. If they are not friendly to your customers, it will damage and this is the fifth F, your feedback and friends. You can be brought down in a heartbeat now on social media. It was so much easier in the old days when being social meant going up the pub. Social media is a completely different world, and you can be brought down in a heartbeat. So a couple of actions for you here. If you don't have it yet, actively create and implement a friends policy. So accumulate friends on, LinkedIn, on wherever it is that you're collecting friends, so that you've got numbers of people there. So is everybody collecting names, friends? Okay. Make sure you're always collecting friends. And then obviously you can keep communicating to them in a positive and friendly way, and then eventually you might invite them to something or whatever it might be. Make sure all your connection handles are on all of your materials. So I don't go out anywhere without this kind of slide in place, or it's on the back of the material, so everybody knows all the different handles of how they can find me. The next thing to do is this. Constantly ask for feedback, testimonials, comments on the product or service that you've been delivering, and make sure you capture that, whether it's written, whether it's online, whether it's film. Every event that we do, because obviously we run educational events, we have a camera in the corner all the time. When people are chatting to me normally and they say, oh, I did this fantastic course last week and we did this and the spanner fell off the wall, and they start yabbiting about it, I say, just come and say that here. And I just drag them over and they say it to the camera, because it's constantly getting feedback. I don't go anywhere without that camera being there, ready to pick up the feedback as and when. And then it gets put on YouTube, it gets put on all the social media places. Publicise that feedback, but I would say this, the feedback has to be current. As soon as the feedback starts getting old, and I've said there 6 months, but I think it does depend on the type of product or service that you have, but please don't have old feedback on there because it looks like you're stale. Make sure everything's updated all the time. Make sure your website is updated. Nothing looks worse than me putting on my website, the next course runs on the 17th of July. It's gone. It looks like you haven't even looked at your website since July. So make sure that it's current, and take feedback down if you can. Review your public feedback daily. Answer it if you can or if you need to. And that's, even if you've got bad feedback, make sure that you go on there. We had a piece of miserable feedback on one of our social media platforms about a course. It was a 3-day course. This guy stayed, I think, for about 3 hours, then left, and then went onto the social media and said this course is a load of rubbish, never learnt anything. Now, what we were able to do is to go back to that public space and say, well, actually, it was a 3-day course, and, the 3 hours that you were there, we were really only covering the introduction, so it's understandable that you didn't learn anything because, everything happened after that. And then people started jumping in, saying, you bloody idiot, how do you think you can learn anything in 3 hours, and actually helped us. So address the feedback even if it's negative, because you should be able to do something about it. If you show that you're brave enough and confident enough to answer negative feedback, that's a really strong plus for customers. The next thing I would say is get a teenager. Get somebody young who will constantly blog, tweet, chat, post, poke, whatever they do, okay? Doesn't float my boat, goes totally over my head, but I know we've got a team of people in the office that do it, and that turns up everywhere. Now, this one is an interesting one. Manage and manipulate your feedback where possible. Now, I have to be very careful with the word manipulate because the law is changing on what feedback you're allowed to put up. Did you see the Which report? I think it came out last week or the week before, and they have started to give people tips on what is a constructed piece of feedback and what's real feedback, and they're giving people the power to take down manufactured feedback. So you need to be very careful if you do generate any feedback of your own, she said politely. If you are generating your own feedback, you need to watch that because there will be a change in law soon to change that, and quite rightly so, because the first thing we all do if we want to book a holiday or buy something is we look at the feedback, don't we? We look at the feedback. Well, at least I do. And if you don't, then your customers are doing it, so be careful. So what I did was I went into jolly old Amazon yesterday and put in the word blender to see what would come up. And now, I don't have a blender. I don't want a blender. I don't even know what a blender does. It's not my kind of thing. But I put in a word that most of us would know. And it came up this was the front page. So we've got the Amazon's Choice blender for $19.99, the Morphy Richards, which is slightly more expensive, and then we've got the bestseller, the Russell Hobbs, for £11.95. Now, it's a bestseller, one imagines, because it's cheap. Now, when I'm looking at feedback, and again, this is from a customer's perspective, so think about how a customer is looking at your business. Now, some of you will have this kind of environment. For some of you, the feedback is just how a customer is experiencing you from the outside. You can still give, even if you're not online, you can give a customer references, you can give them other customers' contacts, you can show them pieces of work. There's lots of stuff that you can do to provide feedback about your product, but most of us would understand this, and this is the one I'm going to go with. Now, we know with feedback, the more feedback there is, the more likely there's a grain of truth to it. So the one at the top, the 8,794 pieces of feedback generating 4.5 stars on that particular blender. Now, you start to have some comfort in that. Now, the second one down, only 35. I think, yeah, I'm not looking at that one, 35. You know, that could be anyway. If there's only 1 or 2 pieces of feedback, no matter how brilliant they are, it's not really worth looking at. And the next one down is 1,000. So I clicked on the first one. It was the Amazon's Choice after all. And this is what came up. So it's come up with the summary, the 8,794 customer reviews. And they've answered 784 questions, which I like, because I like to see that an organisation is engaging with their feedback. So this is still getting a thumbs up from me. This might be the blender I buy. The first ever blender I've ever bought, it could be this one. I mean, it's looking good. I doubt it, though. So I'm then clicked on the customer reviews. Now, on Amazon, I don't know, who sells products on Amazon? None of you. That is interesting, isn't it? A couple. Whether you do or you don't, it's the principle that I need you to pick up on. Amazon helps you enormously here because its default setting when you click on feedback is to the best reviews. So can you see it up there, top reviews? So it automatically clicks to the top reviews. Now, I did this yesterday and I can tell you those 2 reviews are fake. Now, I can tell that in a heartbeat. First of all, they're both 5 stars, yippity-doo-dah, great, okay. They're done at the same time, same week in April. Now, if you see a lot of feedback all coming up the same week, what's happened there is the boss has gone into the office and said, right, everybody do a bit of feedback. Okay. And that's been the task for this week. So this week, we've got, and I can tell you even which department these people are from, because the first person is from the marketing department, because he or she has basically cut and pasted the brochure, because it's listed the benefits of the product. It comes with 2 bottles, it's well made and light, it's easy to use. So they've listed the marketing brochure, okay? I honestly can't find anything wrong with this at all. So that's from somebody in their marketing department. The one below is from somebody in their maintenance department, okay? And I can tell you that because it says, I was worried when reading the instructions. I saw it said to blend for no longer than 30 seconds and leave the blender to rest for 1 minute between each blast to avoid overheating the motor. Now, when you look at all the other feedback, overheating the motor is a common complaint. But obviously, the person from the maintenance department is peed off by that because he or she knows if they read the bloody instructions that said do it for 30 seconds, then the motor wouldn't overheat. So it said you've got to leave it for 1 minute to avoid overheating the heater. Could be why some people report the unit burnt out if they continuously blend for long blasts in one go. But to be fair, and then goes on to something else. So I can even tell you which department this person is from. Now, I don't know whether everybody would read those reviews with that view in mind, but these are the types of views that will be taken down. These are the type of feedback that will be eliminated when legislation comes in. Interestingly, when you look at the Amazon website, you get 2 options for feedback. One is top reviews, the next is most recent. Right, okay, so do you want to see this week's reviews on this blender? You ready? Okay, so this is the manufactured ones from 18 months ago. This is this week's. Okay, you can see immediately, so this is from the 6th and 7th of September, so it's from this week. Immediately see it's different, they're all much shorter, because people don't write those great big long pieces of feedback. They're much shorter, And they're varied. So the first one is 4, the second is 1, the third one is 5, and the fourth one is 1, very poor. So you've got a complete range there. And if you averaged out those, it comes to 2.75, not 4 1/4. So the reason for labouring that is that your feedback is incredibly important. What people are saying and writing about you is incredibly important, because that's the quickest, easiest, cheapest way to find another customer, is to get an existing customer to say something nice about you. If you are getting lots of feedback like this, it's mixed. Obviously, the more feedback you have, the more the bad ones drop to the bottom. So it could well be a time when you go out to your customers and say, could everybody post us some feedback, please? Does that make sense? So monitoring your feedback is really, really important. And even if you think it isn't, it is. Even when you go on to like Yell and people like that on search engines on the internet, there are some feedback criteria. If you don't know what yours are, then have a look. Right, and that's my 5 Fs. I know I've overrun slightly, but my 5 Fs are these. Make sure in today's world you need to be fast, focused, flexible and friendly whilst watching your feedback and your friends, otherwise you will fail. And finally, I'll leave you with two things here. This annoys me when people say, oh, it will do, it won't do. It'll do, won't do, because your customers will go somewhere else. You need to get leaner, better, quicker, sharper, more focused, etc., etc. I always say this, even if you're on the right road, you'll still get run over if you just sit there, because circumstances and time will overtake you and you'll be out of date. So you'll be left behind. And finally, I guess I'll leave you with this. This is Lewis Hamilton's mat on the front of his garage at home. It says, one more time. Now, isn't that fantastic? Persevere, go round one more time. That's how winners are created, by going round one more time. So make sure you persevere and keep going. And that is done. Thank you.